Hey everyone, welcome back to our final time together reading through the Pursuit of God. It has been a great journey. I've enjoyed it thoroughly again. A little bit ago, Sarah Good, she emailed me this story about the Pursuit of God, right? And in it talks about how A.W. Tozer wrote this book. Yeah, so it turns out Tozer, unlike any of his other books, he felt this burden to write this book. He knew people needed to pursue God more. So on this trip that he has, he gets into this train car, right? Mm-hmm. And from him leaving his place to where he ended up through the night, he sits down and in one sitting writes this book.
What a beast.
It's incredible, right?
Yeah.
And I can't imagine having all of this just inside of me, ready to spill out, that others could find depth in their life. And for me it's we've been reading this over 5 weeks, and for him, I don't know, 5 hours, 10 hours, however long that trip was. And I'm excited that we could learn from him and what God placed deep within his heart. And what a cool experience it's been. Yeah. So we're on chapters 9 and 10, right? Mm-hmm. So meekness.
Meekness, it's a good word.
Meekness is a great word. Meekness is a great word. And so I kind of wrote down in my book, what is meekness? And I wrote down that meekness is a right view of self and a right view of who God is. If we don't have a right view of who we are, of men and women loved and created in his image, and if we don't have a right view of who God is, loving, supreme, filled with grace, Lord and King, that's the heart of this chapter.
Totally. My favorite, well, we'll get to my favorite part, but the part that kind of starts for me to explain meekness is where he says the meek man is not a humble mouse. What page is that for you?
So page 57.
Page 57. You need the new version for that.
Yeah.
But it says the meek man is not a human mouse afflicted with a sense of his own inferiority. Rather, he may be in his moral life as bold as a lion and as strong as Samson, but he has stopped being fooled about himself. He has accepted God's estimate for his own life. And like you said, Mike, the meek person is someone who isn't trying to be oh poor me, I won't say anything, I gotta shut up, but is someone who has an honest view of who they are and who God is, and that awesome dynamic between those two. And honesty takes away all the other things. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it. I feel when I read that, whenever I've read The Meek Man, I think of someone who's cowering, someone who's been beaten down. But I love reading his thought of what a meek man is. And really, a meek man is inner strength, knowing who we are. And because of knowing who we are, the right view of self and the right view of God, everything, I don't want to say everything is possible, but we are able to endure anything because of Christ in us.
Right, absolutely. So what do you think of when he talks about pretense and artificiality? To me, those are kind of talking about the masks we put on, that kind of or the energy that we expend trying to get everybody to think, oh yeah, that guy's got it together. But did anything get you with that?
Yeah, I feel that whole idea and thought just echoes deep in our lives and our culture, right? Mm-hmm. So pretense and artificiality. How much we talk about masks, right? But let's talk about filters, Instagram filters, us trying to cover up flaws, right? How often when someone asks me something, I'm sharing a story, do I exaggerate?
Yeah.
Or someone's hey, did you do this? And I'm oh yes, I got that done. And I'll say weeks ago, when really there's a white lie because I got it done like 5 days ago, not a week ago, but 5 days ago. But I want myself to look better. There's a sense of artificiality even in small white lies to make me even look just a little bit better. There's a sense of that, like in our Instagram filters, right? And in covering up different things, you know, that like we're like, hey, like I don't want someone to see the true me, but like really like God is like saying like, no, I want you to take down the masks. I want you to wipe away the filters, because who I created you to be is lovely. Who I created you to be is someone in my own image. And I want you to walk out your image barrenness. I don't even know if that's a word, right? But we can like walk out who God has made us to be, and like that's like the most powerful thing we can be, even with scars, even with blemishes. And when we say like, here is who I am, like God's grace comes in and fills us up, and like even with those things, like His grace like covers that in an even more powerful mask, or an even more powerful filter, because His filter is an eternal filter, right?
I love that barrenness, or that what did you say?
Image bearerness.
Image bearerness. Because when I was reading this, I was thinking of, if you've seen Alice in Wonderland, where he's like, you've lost your muchness, Alice. It's like that ness or s or whatever that is, that the thing befliggy.
It's in there, but it's like who you are, the core of your being. And God's like, man, the core of your being, that's like the beautiful thing. That's like why God's like, hey, like you don't need these like extra things in your life, because the core of who I've created you to be, that's the incredible part.
Yeah.
I love seeing like people like come out of their shell, because like I think that's like them saying, you know what, like I'm not worried about like what others think of me. Like this is me. And whenever someone that like I've been hanging out with, whether it be like for a day or for like a year, and they like finally come out of their shell, I feel like I see a little bit more of God.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally. You get to see a little bit of that image shine through.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my favorite part. Like, this was literally my favorite chapter in the book. And my favorite part was when he talks about the artificiality. Artificiality is one curse that will drop away the moment we kneel at Jesus' feet and surrender ourselves to His meekness. Then we will not care what people think of us, so long as God is pleased. Then what we are will be everything. And that last part is what I had highlighted, that what we are will be everything. Like you said, that core, that's like the coolest part, and that's this awesome mystery. It reminded me of, it's 1 John 2:3. It's one of our favorite, talking about like, who are you? And it says, beloved, now we are children of God, and it has not yet been revealed what we shall be, what we are, what we shall be. But we know that what He is revealed. We know that when He is revealed, we shall be like Him, for we shall see Him as He is. So that core is the core of who we are, is revealed when Christ is revealed. So we get to encounter our-ness, our image-bearingness.
Yes.
whenever we pursue God. And that, to me, that tied this whole thing together.
Yeah. I think like one of the this is like a big curse of our culture nowadays, is like hiding everything. So like the quote he read was on 58, and right above the quote that Dave read, right above it says, most people live in secret fear that someday they will be careless, and by chance an enemy or friend will be allowed to peer into their poor, empty souls.
Oh no, you're gonna see me.
Oh no, you're gonna see me. This is the real me, right? Like, we talk about this a bit because I think it's so powerful, man, that like God calls us to be naked and unashamed. Because inside of you is Christ. And like, if we get to see past the scars, past the hurt, and like see the core of us, right? And that doesn't, we don't cover those things up or say like, hey, I'm naked. This is who I am. And I'm unashamed. yeah, I'm not perfect. I'm not whole right now, but God inside of me has done something and he has changed my life. And that is the power of meekness.
Mm-hmm.
When we say, look into my soul, as I look into it, let me see into you, because when I see into you, I see God.
There you go.
Right?
Absolutely. That is the coolest part, that we can, it's not even like I have to like forget that you're there, but
Mm-hmm.
that I can see God and I can see you, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah. There's people like in different places in culture that will see like this of Christians and say like, well, you're trying to be less of who you are now.
Mm-hmm.
We get to be more of who we are as we let God shine forth from us, since we are created in His image.
Very.
Oof.
Yeah,
So
it's a good image.
so good, right? And so, well, chapter 10, I could talk about chapter 9, meekness, all day.
Yeah.
I know you said it was your favorite chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I think chapter 10 is also like really powerful and a great way to finish this book, the sacred versus the secular.
Yeah.
How often do we get like thinking that like, okay, I put on my Sunday best, right? I come to Chi Alpha and like here is a point in my life. All right, like no cussing, no swearing, no chewing. Like all right, like make sure everything's good. Like, and that's like the heart of this is that like, okay, that has been torn down. That idea that like we have to perform, or that like one day of the week or one season or certain things in our life are more sacred than other things. Like he's saying that's like a fallacy. Why? Because Jesus, he tore the veil, the separation between us and God, right? And now God and his presence has came into every aspect and every area of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can invite God not just into my Sundays, not just into my Bible studies or my morning devotions, but I can invite God, I can welcome him into his fullness in every area of my life, right? Whether it be studying, doing homework, going to class, cooking, hanging out with friends, going on a hike. Those places are just as sacred
Mm-hmm.
than Sundays.
Yeah. In what you said, there's the verse where Christ filled everything. He even he descended into hell to fill it as well too.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's those parts of our lives, the things that we don't see as sacred, the hikes or the studying or whatnot. If they're not, then there's problems in our lives in those places too. And those things, if we're just hanging out with our friends and being crass or being jerks and things like that, then we're not giving God a chance to fill those things in our lives. If we're like, oh no, this is something else. This is the place where God doesn't go.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. One of my favorite SALT speakers, some of you haven't heard of SALT, been to SALT, but it's our winter retreat that usually as Chi Alpha we do all together. The whole region comes to, right? But this man, Dan Bauman, came. He came and spoke several times. Love the guy. But one of his stories reminds me of this and resounds, like when I read this, like it made me think of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've heard Dan Bauman speak.
Oh yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah. And so the story goes that like he's like, okay, God, like I don't know what I'm doing, like what do you want me to do? I want to go do what you're doing, God, right? So Dan goes out on this hike, right? He's around this lake, walking around, like, and he picks up these rocks and starts like, throwing rocks, starts skipping rocks. He's like, God, like, what am I doing? What are you calling me to do? Like, I just want to do what you're doing. And God's like in that moment, God speaks to him. He's like, hey, Dan, I want to do what you're doing. I want to be where you're at. He's like, but where is that guy? And he's like, skipping rocks. And God's like, kind of speaks to Dan's heart in this time. He's like, I want to skip rocks with you. And Dan's like, you want to skip rocks with me? And God speaks to his heart and he's like, yes, I want to skip rocks with you.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, God was showing Dan that like there is no distinction in the sacred and the secular.
Mm-hmm.
God's like, I want to be in every place with you. take me every place with you. I want to be there. I want to be there when you're bowling, playing pool, skipping rocks, all of those places. And that can be a sacred place with us and God, with us and his creation, right?
Totally. Yeah, there can be a beauty in the mundane. That might sound kind of weird, but sometimes like we have those just like simple moments to say, hey, I'm just going to grab a rock and throw it, or I'm just going to, I don't know, walk around and look at the mountains, and those little times can be sacred, and they can help us appreciate the other times when we're like, oh, everybody's here on a Sunday, we're worshiping and stuff like that. Like if we were always worshiping, we're like, yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But you get a little variation.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So one of my favorite parts in this chapter is on page 63, towards the end of one of these chapters. It says, we must offer all of our acts to God and believe that he accepts them. And it goes on at the end of that paragraph. It says, supplement those times, the times being like every time, right? By 1,000 thought prayers as we go about the job of living. Let us practice the fine art of making every work a priestly ministration. Let us believe that God is in all of our simple deeds and learn to find him there. I love that. Like, let's have 1,000 thought prayers in our day. Like, hey God, thanks for this water. Dude, hey God, thanks for hanging out with my buddy Dave, right? Dan. I was just talking about Dan Bauman, right?
I can open my hand.
Yeah. Like we can, like inviting God in those prayers of whether it be gratefulness or the thought, placing him in every motive, every time, every place, every mundane and simple deed that we do, and learn to find Christ there. In that, we get the pursuit of God happens in every place. Not just the sacred, but the secular. Because those two worlds come together, and we're not living two separate lives, but we're living our fullness of our life for Christ. Wherever we are at, he is there too.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, we never leave ourselves behind. Mm-hmm. So if we're in one or the other, there's that image, there's always God. And those things, I don't know, man, that just makes it beautiful to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, well, thank you so much for going on this journey with us. Reading this book. Maybe you've read the whole book. Maybe you've just been like reading, following along on these videos. I want to encourage you, go back and read this book if you've missed some chapters. Maybe go back and read it again, and let like these words, like let's be people that are in pursuit of God in our daily lives, whether it be the sacred or the secular. Let that come together. Let's be people who know who we are, have that right view of self, and have that right view of God, and walk with him together as family and as a community. Dude, thank you so much for hanging out with me every week.
This has been so fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Like I love that we can kind of talk about these things and just dig into God. And thanks guys for like watching these things and giving your feedback and stuff, because we're all growing together too.
Yeah. So thank you. Let's continue to grow together, and hey, have a blessed week. And I'm going to end us in prayer.
All right.
Let's end this time in prayer, and then we'll sign off, and but continue to pursue God. So Jesus, thank you. Thank you for being with us. God, thank you that you have torn the veil, God, and that now you're not contained to a space, God, but you live in every aspect, in every place of our lives, God. God, I pray that we would pursue you in that way. God, that we would have moments, God, of power with you, God, of where your spirit is manifest in our lives and in our spaces, God. But also that we would find you in the simple deeds, in the simple times of our lives, God. God, and that you would be more, and that we would be more in you as we shine your image that's already in us to the world and the people around us, God. God, so I pray that you would bless my friends, God, that they would know you as they pursue you, Jesus. Pray this, God, in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.